Good morning. This is Spirit Journey, and it is November 5th, 2017. I was just thinking about the scandal that's being discussed with Corey Feldman. He was primarily a 1980s teenage celebrity in the movies. And I want to talk about the 1980s for me. The 1980s, well, I should say, 1980 was when I graduated from high school. I was still 17, and the world was a very, very uncharted world that I was now to be a part of. I was raised in a very enclosed home. I really didn't know what was out there. I mean, I had some school friends, but really not knowing outside of my neighborhood. I would say like 5 square blocks. Outside of that, I really didn't know what was out there. Or, your class, the school you go to. And that basically was my world. I did watch a lot of television. And television to me, once I came of age, like I got my first job in the big city, from Queens to Manhattan, had to learn how to take the subway, and all the people I would meet, and the type of people that I met on the job. It was very bizarre, this adult world. It was spooky. I met people with all types of habits. And it was just really bizarre. And I also started college. For me, 1980 was really the beginning of a lot of initiations, if I could say that. Initiations in the sense of, okay, I'm coming of age, in the business world, the so-called real world. How do you deal with people? How to deal with adults? Adults, for me, at the age of 17 and graduated from high school and getting a job, I worked for the city, a city agency, and I was very afraid because adults, for me at that time, they were disciplinaries. That you had to do certain things because they were the adults and you had to do what they say. And so I was very afraid of them because I didn't like discipline, meaning corporal punishment. Like you're in school. And when I was in elementary school, there was corporal punishment. They would hit you, the teachers. And I had parents, well, I should really say my father, who was a disciplinary. And a lot of fear was used. So for me, being in the adult world was a frightening world to be in. And then now I think about the scandals that's being addressed now about pedophilia. Now this Corey Feldman, he's younger than me, and the movies that he was doing, these were, what they call teen movies. So now, like I'm in my early 20s, and he's doing teen films. So for me, it was hard for me to really relate to the teen movies. These were people, it was so, like on the surface, that made me feel that this was the real world. For me, television was just an extension. It was just something that was in a box, but it was a peek into reality. But at the same time, feeling like it's all for entertainment. You go in, you sit down, you watch the box, or you go to the movie theater. You're watching something for maybe 2 hours maximum, and then you go home. But it's how I would feel when I leave or during the time watching. It's showing you something, and it's showing you something for a reason. They were shaping my views, shaping what I thought what reality was supposed to be like, about how we're supposed to relate to one another, about white people. Now, I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. The high school I went to and junior high school was extremely racially and ethnically diverse. That I could say. But all the people of authority were white people. Now, when I first started at 17, my very first job, the people in charge, my bosses, they were women. And the first department I worked in, it was all women, 100% women. And then I got transferred to a different department. And that department was a legal department, a female boss, and all the rest were men. It was a Jewish, they were all Jewish, much older than me, and it was spooky. I mean, it was like, if you're not from, even though my high school, I was around a lot of white people, but it was a lot of other groups too, but this one was exclusively white, initially, and then I remember there were 2 other blacks in that department. We were like support staff. I was the youngest one there. And it was a spooky world. It was spooky because I knew nothing about these people. They were outside of my circle. And they're from a different era than I am. These were, let's see, in this department, the legal department, they were retired lawyers who were being used for the city. And the lady, she was older too. She could have been in her 60s, 50s, 60s. She was very bizarre looking. Spooky. I was afraid of her. Oh, coming back now with the movies now, about reality. Now those teen films, I guess, like, I wanted to still hold on to my youth because I was afraid to move forward, because moving forward into the real world meant that I had to be around big people / older people / people who could hurt you. And so when I hear about Corey Feldman, and here he started out in business as a little child, and I actually remember the commercial that he did when it was a Christmas scene, and he's going down to give Santa a gift, and then he takes a little cookie. He had the milk and cookies for Santa Claus and this gift certificate, and then he runs back and takes one of the cookies. And I thought it was funny at the time. But when I see things like that, it was shaping my world about people and about what's important to people. And the teen movies, they were a bunch of white kids. And the neighborhood, it looked like um, it was a world that I wasn't a part of. That, I mean, I personally, I have to also add this. I didn't go out to see any of the teen movies, like the movies he was in, and I, even though I felt very young, I was emotionally very young, but the movies, it was, I think, intimidating to me because it was showing a movie, a life that I thought I wanted. Um, I always, when I started to learn about the differences between the races, primarily black and white, back then it was either you're black or white. That was my perspective back then. Of course, there's all types of people, but that was my knowledge base. But the white world was a world that was bigger than me. People had their cars, young people had cars. I didn't know any black people who had cars. In high school, the people that I saw that had some cars, like some of the girls had boyfriends that were a little older, I think, and they had their cars. So I didn't understand why they had cars if they were young people. They were teenagers like myself, but they knew how to drive, and I didn't. Driving was an adult activity, and I was intimidated, and still intimidated by driving. I don't like driving. I can't relate to it at all. And it was just when I finally did learn how to drive and get my license, I did so because I was forced to do so. Forced because where I was living at that time, they didn't have mass transit. I got my driver's license in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the island of St. Thomas. And they had one bus, and you had to wait 2 hours. It was a 2-hour ride for something that should take just a short time, but it went the whole route before it got to the destination, the last stop. And it was dangerous also with the taxi drivers. They tried to attack me in the car. It was frightening. They were disgusting, the male taxi drivers. And I was coming from another place. So, I'm not from there, the U.S. Virgin Islands. At least I should say I wasn't born there. And you have your different accent, and you're female, and you're alone. And they are prey to you. You become their prey. They try to attack you. So, this Hollywood world for me was a world I thought was reality. And it was always like, well, I don't have that. And the wealth, the glamour, it was a world that I think in part I aspired to, but at the same time afraid. I was afraid because I also didn't understand their world in relationship to my world, being a female and being a woman of color. Back then there was a lot of social segregation. The races didn't mingle, especially if you're, let's say, from a poor black versus, even if you're a low socioeconomic white. The two groups were separate. They didn't socially socialize that much, especially in the business world. It was zero. So I saw the differences in the race/classism. And Hollywood just seemed to accentuate that class slash race separateness. And I just didn't understand. I didn't understand why things had to be different because of your race or your gender. So Hollywood was something that on one part I looked up to because it was the role model, but it wasn't something achievable, I felt. And so hearing all these horror stories with Corey Feldman, that it was something that wasn't to be aspired to. It was a dangerous world, even for him being a male and Caucasian. And I think he's of a Jewish background as well. And see, these are all stereotypes about certain demographics supposedly having money, fame, and prestige. This is an eye-opener to me, an education to me at this late stage of my life. That the 80s had a big influence on me in a negative way. It was a fearful time. And so I'm very grateful that this Corey Feldman is sharing his story, exposing the lie of Hollywood and all its glamour. And I would never think that something like what happened to him was something so dangerous and so corrupt. I thought it was a world for them that was a perfect world. And to see that my perception was completely distorted. And so my sharing this and having this on my channel, and I have it on this channel because it is part of my spiritual development, my journey in this world about perception. And my perception was greatly distorted about what's pretty, what's not. That Hollywood gave the standard of what you're supposed to look like, dress like, act like. And again, racism, how certain races or demographics supposed to be. And so television, when I went to my work site, how I was treated by some of the whites there, it was awful. Hollywood and television showed people like me of my race, but blacks, as being criminals and natural predators. And so when I got to work, I was treated by some of these people, and it wasn't fair. I see now that Hollywood and television and media was a world to create false realities, and false realities to destroy people, to destroy families, to make you impoverished by its unrealistic expectations for you to acquire. It taught you had to have these certain type of clothes, hairstyles, to live in certain neighborhoods. And it was all a trap, a financial trap, to acquire big homes that you can't afford, and schools, fancy schools for your children, and you have to take mortgages out, extra mortgages to pay for this dream. And in the end, there's you're in debt. You're in utmost debt, and you can't bail out. And even though, like, as Corey Feldman shared, that I think he said he was 15 years old when he wanted to become emancipated from his parents who were spending all his money. I thought this was, it was reminiscent of something that I was told about. I mean, not about him, but how sometimes like parents would take, they take his money. They took his money. And he was just saying in a video that at the time of his emancipation, it was supposed to be a fund of monies for your kids. You know, in Hollywood, when you're a child actor, they're supposed to have money set aside for you to protect the child, because sometimes there's no money left when the kid comes of age, is 18, 19 years old, and says, oh, where's my money? And there's no money left, and they're in poverty. So even with that $40,000 Corey Feldman had left at the time of emancipation, his father sues him for that $40,000. So, oh, well, I had to take care of you, and money for private lessons and clothes, etc. So at 15, he had zero money left over because he gave it to his father, and his world spiraled downward. And that Hollywood dream of glamour wasn't, and the sexual predators that was out there. I remember my first job in that legal department. I worked with this lady, and I was afraid of her because what she looked like, and she was getting into my crossing my boundaries when she was asking me to turn around and to kind of like model for her. So, oh, look at your body. Oh, turn around for me. And I was afraid. Because she looked like a man woman. I'm not just trying to say this to be funny, but the lady, remember the movie Tootsie? That character, it was a man dressed as a woman. But she looked exactly like that. And she's supposed to have children. And I didn't understand how someone could have children if they are a man. And so, I don't know. And she sounded like a man, and everybody who spoke to her thought she was a man also. But I was afraid of it. And so just imagine Corey Feldman as a child, and here I was 17 years old and when that happened, but here he started out at the age of 3. And as he got older, he started realizing what was going on around him when he hit his teens. Just imagine how fearful he was. And I know I was afraid. So I share this because it's about dismantling the false image or illusions that I had growing up that controlled me. That it seems like this world, it's all about images. And it's up to you how you want to internalize that world. You could look at the world with indifference, with fear, with joy, all these different emotions. And it's just, I think it's just a learning lesson. Like you ask yourself, what is the significance of this? Why is so-and-so sharing this with you, or telling you this, or doing this to me? Always ask yourself, what are they trying to communicate? Hollywood, television, and media is about communicating to you for you to believe in a certain thing, to have a mindset. And that mindset is actually to exploit you, exploit some quality about you. Whether it's your looks, it exploits your looks, your youth, everything. So that's what I learned in all this. And I hope you like this audio diary that I'm doing. And please feel free to comment below and share your experiences growing up in the 1980s with these movies, these falsehoods of Hollywood, and how it affected your life. And to share this video with friends and family members, and to subscribe if you like this channel. And if you like to support my videos and audio diaries, please feel free to donate to my channel, and you can PayPal me. And that you see the link on my channel on the top of the top portion of the channel. So take care and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.